Hey everyone, in today's real-world review, I'm going to take a look at two different external phono preamps from Cambridge Audio, the old and the new. I'm putting my assumed lost but then found Azure 651P up against the company's new Alva Duo. We'll learn a little bit about how they've each reacted to a variety of parts in the signal chain and which one has won out for now. When we moved last year, and after the container of all our stuff had arrived and had been unloaded into the house, as with every move, some items were missing. And among those items just happened to be my trusty Cambridge Audio Azure 651P Phono preamp. I had been dying to dig through my vinyl collection and listen to some of my favorites again, so I did some fast research and decided to stick with Cambridge and go with the Alva Duo. After all, I'd been extremely pleased with the Cambridge audio I'd been using, so why wouldn't I stick with the brand? Great sound, great value, seemed to be a great solution. Both devices support moving magnet and moving coil cartridges. Both have voltage ranges which are a solid match for my cartridge. The Alva adds a headphone amp, which I've not used since I don't listen with headphones. The Alva also has a higher quality build and finish, though neither could be considered unattractive. One other difference where I happen to prefer the Azure is that the Azure is just on. In fact, I had it completely packed away in the back of my rack before because I never needed to touch it. The newer Alva will automatically turn itself off after 20 minutes without an input signal, and you need to remember to turn it back on before use. Look, power saving is great, and I'm all for it, but I also tend to forget to turn it on until after I've dropped the needle. Then it needs about 5 seconds to power up and become active, at which point I'm already restarting the album side. The Azure has a defeatable subsonic filter, the Alva does not, but the Alva adds a front panel indicator and switch for identifying and selecting moving magnet or moving coil. Plus it has a balance control on the back for whatever reason. Both devices have the inputs and outputs labeled right side up and upside down to make it easy to read when you're picking it up and flipping quickly just to check your input or a switch. My system, when we moved, consisted of a Project debut carbon table with a HANA EL cartridge, the Cambridge Audio preamp, a Jolita tube integrated amplifier, and a pair of vintage Definitive Technology BP20s. When the new preamp arrived, I dropped it into the chain and started listening, and tweaking, and moving the bipole towers around to no avail. After the initial joy of listening to my records again had faded, I was left disappointed. And then I found my old Azure 651P preamp in a stray box in the basement. I put it back into the system and things livened up a bit. It was an improvement, which was disappointing that the new piece hadn't lived up to its predecessor. In our previous home, this system lived in a really big room with carpet and double height vaulted ceilings, and it all sounded just delightful. It was a great combination from stylus to sound wave. The new house, however, is a much different setup, and once configured, it just didn't sound the same. With concrete floors, lots of glass, a relatively open floor plan, the bipole speakers just weren't doing it. There was too much reverb in the room, even after adding rugs and furniture and plants and people. No amount of tweaking and adjusting the placement of these speakers made a difference. There was just no clarity left in this particular room. So my scavenger hunt began. The first piece I found, tested, and settled into was a pair of Bang & Olufsen Beolab 8000 speakers, which are powered, which means I needed to replace the Jolita with something else that wasn't powered. Enter a Carry Audio Cinema 11 processor, which sounded nice, but at its age had some quirks with the switching inputs and added noise. I replaced that with a B&K PT5, another old processor, and it has its own set of quirks and doesn't have a remote, but it sounds great. As I mentioned, with the original equipment in this room, the Azure 651P won out. When I added it back into the signal path, the sound opened up and there was just a cleaner, clearer high end. more clarity even with the lack of real definition due to the bipole speaker design. However, recently I realized that I had not tried the Alva Duo at all throughout the process of adding the two different processors and the Bang & Olufsen speakers. So I decided to do some critical listening, and I made some very interesting, even odd notes. When I dropped the Alva Duo into the chain with the B&K processor and Bayo Labs, I had the exact same initial reaction as when I removed it and put the Azure in line with the previous equipment. High frequencies were unleashed, clarity and definition opened up. This really didn't seem possible, so I dropped the Carry Audio processor back in and found the same improvements. Detail was improved with the Alva to the point I found myself cleaning more records to remove clicks and pops. While the sound had a little less bass, it seems to be a more accurate representation of the frequency range and EQ on the record. And let's face it, my Bayo Labs are not exactly full-range, bass-heavy monsters, only dropping down to 52 Hertz. The Alva gave a clean and clear signal with plenty of definition and a wider soundstage throughout the room. The Azure seems to have a little more full bottom end, but comparing a track from vinyl to the same track digitally through my Bluesound node, I feel perhaps the Azure is bloating lower frequencies slightly, sacrificing some of that detail in the higher frequencies. I found myself going back and forth again on my preference based on the tracks I was listening to. John Mayer's Continuum album sounded crystal clear and immaculate on the newer Alva, versus Mute Math's Play Dead, which took the low-end boost of the Azure to town. Based on the polar opposite observations between the different equipment combinations used after the preamps, I'm going to keep them both on hand for when the rest of my system inevitably changes again. But for now, I'm going with the accuracy of the Alva Duo. I've been keeping my eyes open for a Bang & Olufsen Bayolab 2 sub to add to the 8000s to round out that lower end. This would give me more power down there and just a better bass response. Seems like the better option compared to using a boomier Phono preamp. I don't know if it was the tubes or the bipole speakers, but these two preamps reacted completely differently in the different setups they were tested with. All things considered, for the price, I would recommend either one of these preamps, if they're a match for the voltage of your cartridge. While the Azure might be getting a little harder to find, if you're the type who likes to boost your subs or you don't have a high quality cleaning option, you might like the slight shift towards the lower end offered by tracking down the older model. If you're looking for a truly accurate neutral preamp, the newer Alva would be the pick for you. Both offer the flexibility to work with a wide range of cartridges. If you like to change things up, or maybe you have two tables, this makes switching between the two as simple as flipping the switch or pressing the button. The price point offers a tremendous value. It's not quite entry level, but if you're making your first jump from, say, a moving magnet into a moving coil cartridge and you need to upgrade your preamp at the same time, these are great options to keep from breaking the bank. So if you're looking for the Azure 651P, you're going to need to hit up the used market. If you want that accuracy of the Alva Duo, I'll put a link in the description below. In the meantime, please make sure to like this video and subscribe to the AV Nirvana channel, and then head over to avnirvana.com to join in the conversation with other like-minded folks there. Thanks for watching today, and I'll see you real soon with another real-world review.